another Hot Girl Reads. We are on episode 24 out of 48. We're reading the 48 Laws of Power. It's been a little minute since I have done this, guys. Life has been lifing. You feel me? You feel me? Anybody else with this Mercury retrograde? Anybody else? But okay, guys, if this is your first time here, welcome to 48 Laws of Power by Mr. Robert Greene himself. Guys, I did not write this book, so I do not want all the credit for it. If you want to follow along, go ahead and get the book yourself. I know a lot of you guys are not from the US that watch my videos, so if you are using my content to learn English, please get this book to follow along to understand a lot of the enunciations and pronunciations. Is that the right word? That I do. I may not pronounce 100% everything right, but for the most part, yeah. So if you guys go ahead and open up your books, we are at Law 24, page 178, okay? Play the Perfect Courtier. Judgment. Let me do this. The perfect courtier thrives in a world where everything revolves around power and political dexterity. He has mastered the art of indirection. He flatters, yields to superiors, and asserts power over others in the most oblique and graceful manner. Learn and apply the laws of courtiership, and there will be no limit to how far you can rise in the court. Court society. It is a fact of human nature that the structure of a court society forms itself around power. In the past, the court gathered around the ruler and had many functions. Besides keeping the ruler amused, it was a way to solidify the hierarchy of royalty. Kushni, you better not. You better not. Guys, I literally just bought this dog a dog bed, and it's small. It's smaller than the usual ones that I get her. I thought she would fit it. I don't know. But anyways, this is also a test before I get her a bigger one, because she always rips it up and the stuffing gets all over the place. So we'll see if she deserves a bigger dog bed or not. Anyways, hierarchy of royalty, nobility, and the upper classes, and to keep the nobility both subordinate and close to the ruler so that he could keep an eye on them. The court serves power in many ways, but most of all, it glorifies the ruler, providing him with a microcosmic world that must struggle to please him. To be a courtier was a dangerous game. And then a 19th century Arab traveler to the court of Darfur in what is now Sudan reported that courtiers there had to do whatever the Sultan did. And if he were injured, they had to suffer the same injury. If he fell off his horse during a hunt, they fell too. Mimicry like this appeared in courts all over the world. More troublesome was the danger of displeasing the ruler. One wrong move spelled death or exile. The successful courtier had to walk a tightrope, pleasing but not pleasing too much, obeying but somehow distinguishing himself from the other courtiers, while also never distinguishing himself so far as to make the ruler insecure. Great courtiers throughout history have mastered the science of manipulating people. They make the king feel more kingly. They make everyone else fear their power. They are magicians of appearance, knowing that most things at court are judged by how they seem. Great courtiers are gracious and polite. Their aggression is veiled and indirect, masters of the word. They never say more than necessary, getting the most out of a compliment or hidden insult. They are magnets of pleasure. People want to be around them because they know how to please, yet they neither fawn nor humiliate themselves. Great courtiers become the king's favorites. enjoying the benefits of the position. They often end up more powerful than the ruler, for they are wizards in the accumulation of influence. Many today dismiss court life as a relic of the past, a historical curiosity. The reason, according to Machiavelli, as though heaven and the sun elements and the men had changed the order of their motions and powers, were different from what they were in the ancient times. There may be there may be no more sun kings, but there are still plenty of people who believe the sun revolves around them. The royal court may have more or less disappeared or at least lost its powers, but courts and courtiers still exist because power still exists. A courtier is rarely asked to fall off of a horse anymore, but the laws that govern court politics are as timeless as the laws of power. There is much to be learned then and from great courtiers, past and present. Okay, guys. So before we go ahead and get into all of the different little laws that they have, I'm just going to go ahead and read these little red blurbs because might as well get it out the way. This is going to be a little bit of a longer chapter as a BTW, okay? So this is one of the little red fables, poems, short stories, something like that. The Two Dogs. Barbos, the faithful yard dog who serves his master zealously, happened to see his old acquaintance Juju, the curly lapdog, seated at the window on the soft down cushion, sidling fondly up to her like a child to a parent. He all but weeps with emotion, and there under the window he whines, wags his tails, and bounds about. What sort of life do you lead now, Jujuka? Ever since the master took you into his mansion, you remember no doubt how we often used to suffer hunger out in the yard. What is your present service like? It would be a sin in me to murmur against my good fortune, answers Juzuka. My master cannot make enough of me. I live amidst riches and plenty, and I eat and drink off silver. I frolic with the master, and if I get tired, I take my ease on carpets or on a soft couch. And how do you get on? I, replies Barbos, letting his tail dangle like a whip and hanging his head. I live as I used to do. I suffer from cold and hunger, and here, while guarding my master's house, I have slept at the foot of the wall, and I get drenched in the rain. And if I bark at the wrong time, I am whipped. But how did you, Juju, who were so small and weak, get taken into favor, while I jump out of my skin to no purpose? What is it to what is it you do? What is it you do? A pretty question to ask, replied Juju mockingly. I walk upon my hind legs. Fable by Ivan Krylov, 1768 to 1844. I think that was really cute. So it kind of just shows like why sometimes, like, okay, for example, in that story, the little dog was able to live amidst the riches and have all of these lavish things because he can walk on his hind legs. Okay, it is a wise thing to be polite. Consequently, it is a stupid thing to be rude. To make enemies by unnecessary and willful incivility is just as insane as proceeding as to set your house on fire. Ew. Ew. For politeness is like a counter, an avowedly false coin, with which it is foolish to be stingy. A sensible man will be generous in the use of it. Wax, a substance naturally hard and brittle, can be made soft by the application of a little warmth, so that it will take any shape you please. In the same way, by being polite and friendly, you can make people pliable and obliging, even though they are apt to be crabbed and malevolent. Hence, politeness is to human nature what warmth is to wax. Arthur Schopenhauer, 1788 to 1860. I think that's just true. Like, just being a kind person and treating people kindly and just being polite, it literally gets you so much further than being a D-bag. Literally. Like, when you're a douchebag, how far does it get you guys? How far does it get you? And karma, literally, karma is so real. Okay, so now let's go ahead. Hold on. Now let's go ahead and get into the laws of court politics, okay? Number 1, avoid ostentation. It is never prudent to prattle on about yourself or call too much attention to your actions. The more you talk about your deeds, the more suspicion you cause. You also stir up enough envy among your peers to induce treachery and backstabbing. Be careful, ever so careful in trumpeting your own achievements, and always talk less about yourself than about other people. Modesty is generally preferable. Interesting. Practice nonchalance. Never seem to be working too hard. Your talent must appear to flow naturally, with an ease that makes people take you for a genius rather than a workaholic. Even when something demands a lot of sweat, make it look effortless. People prefer to not see your blood and toil, which in another form of ostentation, it is better for them to marvel at how gracefully you have achieved your accomplishment than to wonder why it took so much work. That's really what I have been like doing lately. Like, I have been so nonchalant. I'm usually very chalant, but I'm trying to practice like just being nonchalant about things and just like, meh, yeah, meh, whatever. Be frugal with flattery. It may seem that your superiors cannot get enough flattery, but too much of even a good thing loses its value. It also stirs up suspicion among your peers. Learn to flatter indirectly by downplaying your own contribution. For example, to make your master look better. That's what I like to do. I mean, like, honestly, I really just hate bragging, and like, it's something about that boisterous person that is like, oh my god, I'm so good, and I do this, that, and the third. What is it? Humility, being humble, guys. It just hits different. Being humble and nonchalant, like, people want to be you. You know what I'm saying? And like, also when you're just like praising everybody and you just have that energy and that atmosphere, it's like, oh my god, it's so contagious. I'm doing good. I'm nonchalant about it. I don't want to I'm not over here in everybody's face being boisterous and claiming about how good I am and just bragging. It just hits different, okay? Arrogance to be noticed. There is a paradox. You cannot display yourself too brazenly, yet you must also get yourself noticed. In the court of Louis the 14th, whoever the king decided to look at rose instantly in the court hierarchy. You stand no chance of rising if the ruler does not notice you in the swamp of courtiers. This task requires much art. It is often initially a matter of being seen, in the literal sense. Pay attention to your physical appearance, then find a way to create a subtly distinctive style and image. So I think that's very true. Like, you really need to make your work speak without you talking. Like, let your work speak for yourself, and that's literally how you get noticed. And make sure like nobody else is getting credit off of your work. Like, make sure you're taking credit for what you do. Alter your style and language according to the person you are dealing with. The pseudo belief in equality, the idea that talking and acting the same way with everyone, no matter what their rank, makes you somehow a paragon of civilization, is a terrible mistake. Those below you will take it as a form of condescension, which it is, and those above you will be offended, although they may not admit it. You must change your style and your way of speaking to to suit each person. This is not lying, it's acting. And acting is an art, not a gift from God. Learn the art. This is also true for the great variety of cultures found in the modern court. Never assume that your criteria of behavior and judgment is universal. Not only is an ability to adapt another culture the height of barbarism, it puts you at a disadvantage. So I think that's really true. Like, it's this thing called matching and mirroring. So when you're with people, like, obviously you need to still be yourself, but like if someone is at a 6, you don't want to be at a 10. You want to be maybe at a 7, or you want to be at a 5. You don't really want to bring anybody down, but you really want to be like, you want to match them. So if someone's at a 10, okay, I'm at a 10, maybe even an 11, maybe a 10.5. But I'm matching, I'm marrying. I'm still myself, but it's the level of energy that you bring. You know what I'm saying? And it's also like the person that you're dealing with. Like, you're not going to go, you see how, well, I'm a very casual person, but you see how, okay, for example, if you are irritated and you're driving in the car and you have road rage and you're talking and you're upset and you're cussing someone out because they cut you off and made you miss your life, blah blah blah, are you gonna talk that way to the president? Some people. But are you gonna talk that way to somebody that you really highly respect? No. But you have to match and mirror. You know what I'm saying? Never be the bearer of bad news. The king kills the messenger who brings bad news. This is a cliche, but there is truth to it. You must struggle and, if necessary, lie and cheat to be sure that the lot of the bearer of bad news falls on a colleague, never on you. Bring only good news, and your approach will gladden your master. I mean, that's true. Like, if you're always the person that's bringing the bad news, like, you're gonna have that reputation, and then when people see you, they're just gonna be like, oh, here we go again. I'm gonna have to hear blase, blase, blase. But I mean, if you're always coming and you got that good stuff to talk about, people are gonna be excited to hear what you have to say. Duh. Okay. Never affect friendliness and intimacy with your master. He does not want a friend for a subordinate. He wants a subordinate. Never approach him in the easy, friendly way or act as if you are the best of terms. That is his prerogative. If he chooses to deal with you on this level, assume a wary chumminess. Otherwise, err in the opposite direction and make the distance between you clear. I think that is very, very true. And a lot of the times in power dynamics, when you think you're friends with someone that's also above you, it's like you get a real reality check and it blurs the lines and it makes things weird. So you need to always make sure that you are like making sure that the person that is above you, you know, read the previous chapters. Listen to the previous chapters and then you will understand what I'm saying. Okay? Never criticize those above you directly. This may seem obvious, but there are often times when this sort of criticism is necessary. To say nothing or to give no advice would open you to a risk of another sort. You must learn, however, to coach your advice and criticism as indirectly and as politely as possible. Think twice and 3 times before deciding you have made them sufficiently circuitous. How do you say this, guys? circuitous. Err on the side of subtlety and gentleness. So I think that's like, it just depends. Like, okay, when you're a doctor and you have to go tell a family that their loved one isn't gonna make it, how are you giving? Oh, wait. Sorry, that has nothing to do with what I just read. Okay, so like hypothetically speaking, your boss, they're like, oh my God, I need some advice. Give me some criticism. Be real. I can take it. Be very cautious of what you say. Be very cautious. Be very cautious. Be very cautious, okay? Because it's like I was saying with the hospital thing. When they are giving the bad news, they're not going to say, hey, patient X, Y, and Z didn't make it. Sorry. If you want funeral services, we can have that handled. No, the doctor's gonna be like, condolences. They have to be strong. They have to tell them what, like, they have to be the rock for someone to hold on to. And it's all about the delivery. And it's the same thing when it comes to this. Be frugal and asking those above you for favors. Nothing irritates a master more than having to reject someone's request. It stirs up guilt and resentment. Ask for favors as rarely as possible, and know when to stop. Rather than making yourself the supplicant, it is always better to earn your favors so that the ruler bestows them willingly. Most important, do not ask for favors on another person's behalf, least of all friends. Ooh! That's tea. So the thing about asking for favors, you, especially if you are new, when you're new, you don't get any favors. When you are new somewhere, you do not get any favors. You need to work your way up and prove to whoever is in charge that you can start asking for favors. You need to really work and show your value. And the second thing that it said was never ask for a favor on another person's behalf, because you are doing someone else's dirty work. When someone is always trying to orchestrate and be like, oh, do this for me, do that for me, oh, it's for your friend, why can't they do it? Ask yourself that. Now, never joke on the appearance or never joke about appearances or taste. A lively wit and a humorous disposition are essential qualities for a good courtier. And there are times when vulgarity is appropriate and engaging, but avoid any kind of joke about appearance or taste, two highly sensitive areas, especially with those above you. Do not even try it when you are away from them. You will dig your own grave. I think that is very, very true, because, like, the thing is, words have a stain. A lot of the times when we say stuff to people, like, it lasts, and people don't remember exactly what you say to them sometimes, but people will remember how you make them feel, right? So when you are over here and you're over here joking about how someone looks, someone's appearance, something that they cannot change, oh baby, they're gonna remember that. And that is not gonna look good for you. Seriously. Seriously serious. Okay, do not be a court cynic. Express admiration for the good work of others. If you constantly criticize your equals or subordinates, some of that criticism will rub off on you, hovering over you like a gray cloud wherever you go. People will groan at each new cynical comment, and you will irritate them. By expressing modest admiration for other people's achievements, you paradoxically call attention to your own. The ability to express wonder and amazement and seem like you mean it is a rare and dying talent, but one still greatly valued. That is very true. Like, just give somebody else their props. Like, it doesn't hurt to be like, oh my god, this person is doing good. And when you are that person, or you're constantly around that person that is always negative and always criticizing every single thing, like, it gets draining. It gets exhausting. People don't want to be around that. It's like an energy vampire. Seriously. Seriously serious. Okay? Be self-observant. The mirror is a miraculous invention. Without it, you would commit great sins against beauty and decorum. You also need a mirror for your actions. This can sometimes come from other people telling you what they see in you. But that is not the most trustworthy method. You must be the mirror, training your mind to try to see yourself as others see you. Are you acting too obsequious? 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 I don't know how do you say this. Okay. Obsequious. How do you say that? Are you trying too hard to please? Do you seem desperate for the attention, giving the impression that you are on the Sorry, guys. That you are on the decline. Be observant about yourself, and you will avoid a mountain of blunders. Master your emotions. This is what I need to work on. As an actor in a great play, you must learn to cry and laugh on command and when it is appropriate. You must be able to both to disguise your anger. Hey, disguise your anger and frustration and fake your contentment and agreement. You must be the master of your own face. Call it lying if you like, but if you prefer to not play the game and always be honest and upfront, do not complain when others call you obnoxious and arrogant. Apparently, guys, I've been told I'm very facially expressive. So that is something that I really want to work on, and I want to have a lot, like a better poker face. Poker face. Okay. Fix the spirit of the times. Oh, excuse me. Fit the spirit of the times. A slight affectation of the past era, we can be charming as long as you choose a period at least 20 years back. Wearing fashion of 10 years ago is ludicrous unless you enjoy the role of the court jester. Your spirit and way of thinking must keep up with the times, even if the times offend your sensibilities. Be too forward thinking, however, and no one will understand you. It is never a good idea to stand out too much in this area. You are best off at least being able to mimic the spirit of the times. I think that's very true when it comes to trends in society. Like right now, we're seeing a resurgence in hip hop of the 2000s as music, those club bangers. People don't want to hear rah, 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 kill, 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 shoot, 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 B's, H's, N's, none of that. They want to have fun. Things are a little bit too tense right now, okay? So that's the same thing. Like, you see it, trends always tend to repeat itself, and obviously it's usually every 20 years that we see a lot of things like resurgence. Right now we're starting to see skinny jeans are starting to go out again, while like the baggier jeans are still in. The boot cut cowgirl is back in. Cowgirl used to be so big in the 2000s, and it totally fell off in the 2010s, and now it's back. Just saying. Be a source of pleasure. This is critical. It is an obvious law of human nature that we flee what is unpleasant and distasteful, while charm and the promise of delight will draw us like moths to a flame. Make yourself the flame and you will rise to the top. Since life is otherwise so full of unpleasantness and pleasure so scarce, you will be as indispensable as food and drink. This may seem obvious, but what is obvious is often ignored and unappreciated. There are degrees to this. Not everyone can play the role of the favorite, for not everyone is blessed with the charm and wit. But we can all control our unpleasant qualities and obscure them when necessary. A man who knows the court is master of his gestures, and his eyes and of his face. He is profound, impenetrable. He dissimulates bad offices, smiles at his enemies, controls his irritation, disguises his passions, belies his heart, speaks and acts against his feelings. Jean de la Bruyere, 1645 to 1696. Scenes of court life, exemplary deeds, and fatal mistakes. Okay, so this is scene 1, act 1. Alexander the Great, conqueror of the Mediterranean basin and the Middle East through to India, had the great Aristotle as his tutor and mentor, and throughout his short life he remained devoted to philosophy and his master's teachings. He once complained to Aristotle that during his long campaigns he had no one with whom he could discuss philosophical matters. Aristotle responded by suggesting that he take Callisthenes A formal pupil of Aristotle's and a promising philosopher in his own right along on the next campaign. Aristotle had schooled Callisthenes in the skills of being a courtier, but the young man secretly scoffed at them. He believed in pure philosophy, in unadorned words, in speaking the naked truth. If Alexander loved learning so much, Callisthenes thought, he could not object to one who spoke his mind. During one of Alexander's major campaigns, Callisthenes spoke his mind one too many times, and Alexander had put him to death. It'd be like that. It'd be like that. Interpretation. In court, honesty is a fool's game. Never be so self absorbed to believe that the master is interested in your criticisms of him, no matter how accurate they are. That's very true. Scene 2. Beginning in the Han Dynasty 2,000 years ago, Chinese scholars compiled a series of writings called the 21 Histories, an official biography of each dynasty, including stories, statistics, census figures, and war chronicles. Each history also contained a chapter called Unusual Events. And here, among the listings of earthquakes and floods, there would sometimes suddenly appear descriptions of bizarre manifestations as two-headed sheep, geese flying backwards, stars suddenly appearing in different parts of the sky, and so on. The earthquakes could be historically verified, but the monsters and weird natural phenomenon were clearly inserted on purpose and invariably occurred in clusters. What could this mean? The Chinese emperor was considered more than a man, and he was a force of nature. His kingdom was the center of the universe, and everything revolved around him. He embodied the world's perfection. To criticize him or any of his actions would have been to criticize the divine order. No minister or courtier dared approach the emperor with even the slightest cautionary word. But the emperors were fallible and the kingdom suffered greatly by their mistakes. Inserting sightings of strange phenomena into the court chronicles was the only way to warn them. The emperor would read of geese flying backwards and moons out of orbit and realize that he was being cautioned. His actions were unbalancing the universe and needed to change. Interpretation. For Chinese courtiers, the problem of how to give the emperor advice was an important issue. Over the years, thousands of them had died trying to warn or counsel their master. To be made safely, their criticisms had to be indirect. Yet, if they were too indirect, they would not be heeded. The chronicles were their solutions. Identify no one person as a source of criticism and make the advice as impersonal as possible. But let the emperors know the gravity of the situation. Your master is no longer the center of the universe, but he still imagines that everything revolves around him. When you criticize him, he sees the people criticizing, not the criticism itself. Like the Chinese courtiers, you must find a way to disappear behind the warning. Use symbols and other indirect methods to paint a picture of the problems to come without putting your neck on the line. Scene 3. Early in his career, the French architect Jules Mansart received commissions to design minor additions to Versailles for King Louis XIV. For each design, he would draw up his plans, making sure they followed Louis's instructions closely. He would then present them to His Majesty. The courtier Saint Simon described Mansart's technique in dealing with the kings. His particular skill was to show the king's plans the purpose that purposely included something imperfect about them, often dealing with the gardens, which were not Mansart's specialty. The king asked Mansart's stop, be patient, expected, would put his finger exactly on the problem and propose how to solve it. At which point Mansart would exclaim for all to hear that he would never have seen the problem that the king had so masterfully found and solved. He would burst with admiration, confessing that next to the king he was but a lowly pupil. At the age of 30, having used these methods time and time again, Mansart received the prestigious royal commission. Although he was less talented and experienced than a number of other French designers, he was to take charge of the enlargement of Versailles. He was a king's architect from then on. Interpretation. As a young man, Mansart had seen how many royal craftsmen in the service of Louis XIV had lost their positions, not through a lack of talent, but through a costly social blunder. He would not make the same mistake. Mansart always strove to make Louis feel better than about himself, to feed the king's vanity as publicly as possible. Never imagine that skill and talent are all that matter. In the court, the courtier's art is more important than his talent. Never spend so much time on your studies that you neglect your social skills. And the greatest skill of all is the ability to make the master look more talented than those around him. Period. Period. Hi guys, welcome to the live. Scene number 4. Okay, Jean-Baptiste Isabey had become the unofficial painter of the Napoleonic court. During the Congress of Vienna in 1814, after Napoleon defeated and had been imprisoned on the island of Elba, the participants in this meeting, which were to decide the fate of Europe, invited Isabey to immortalize the historic events in the epic painting. When Isabey arrived in Vienna, Talleyrand, the main negotiator for the French, paid the artist a visit. Considering his role in the proceedings, the statesman explained he expected to occupy center stage in the painting. Isabey cordially agreed. A few days later, Duke of Wellington, the main negotiator for the English, also approached Isabey and said much the same thing that Talleyrand had. The ever-polite Isabey agreed, and that the great Duke should indeed be the center of attention. Back in his studio, Isabey pondered the dilemma. If he gave the spotlight to either of the two men, he could create a diplomatic rift, stirring up all sorts of resentment at the time, and when peace and concord were critical. When painting was finally unveiled, however, both Talleyrand and Wellington felt honored and satisfied. The work depicts a large hall filled with diplomats and politicians from all over Europe. On one side, the Duke of Wellington enters the room, and all eyes are turned towards him. He is the center of attention. In the very center of the painting, meanwhile, sits Talleyrand. Interpretation. It is often very difficult to satisfy the master, but to satisfy two masters in one stroke takes the genius of a great courtier. Such predicaments are common in the life of a courtier. By giving attention to one master, he displeases another. You must find a way to navigate this Scylla and Charybdis safely. Masters must receive their due. Never inadvertently stir up the resentment in one in pleasing another. Scene number 5. George Brummel, also known as Beau Brummel, made his mark in the late 1700s by the supreme elegance of his appearance. His popularization of shoe buckles, soon imitated by all the dandies, and his clever ways with words. His London house was the fashionable spot in town, and Brummel was authority on all matters in fashion. If he disliked your footwear, you immediately got rid of it and bought whatever he was wearing. He perfected the art of tying a cravat. Lord Byron was said to spend many a night in front of the mirror trying to figure out the secret behind Brummel's perfect knots. One of Brummel's greatest admirers was the Prince of Wales, who fancied himself a fashionable young man. Becoming attached to the prince's court and provided with the royal pension, Brummel was soon so sure of his own authority there that he took to joking about the prince's weight, referring to him to his host as Big Ben. Since trimness of figure was an important quality for a dandy, this was a withering criticism. At dinner, once the service was slow, Brummel said to the prince, "Do ring, Big Ben." The prince ran, but when the valet arrived, he ordered the man to show Brummel the door and never admit him again. Despite falling into the prince's disfavor, Brummel continued to treat everyone around him with the same arrogance. Without the Prince of Wales' patronage to support him, he sank into horrible debt. But he maintained his insolent manners, and everyone soon abandoned him. He died in the most pitiable poverty, alone and deranged. That is so tragic. But it's really how you treat people at the end of the day. Interpretation. Beau Brummell's devastating wit was one of the qualities that endeared him to the Prince of Wales. But not even he, the arbiter of taste and fashion, could get away with the joke about the prince's appearance, least of all his face. Never joke about the person's plumpness, even indirectly, and particularly when he is your master. The poorhouses of history are filled with people who have made such jokes at their master's expense. Okay, sorry. All right. Scene number 6. Pope Urban VIII wanted to be remembered for his skills in writing poetry, which unfortunately were mediocre at best. In 1629, Duke Francesco d'Este, knowing the Pope's literary pretensions, sent the poet Fulvio Testi to his ambassador to the Vatican. One of Testi's letters to the dukes reveals why he was chosen. Once our discussion was over, I kneeled to depart. But His Holiness made a signal and walked to another room where he sleeps, and after reaching a table, he grabbed a bundle of papers, and thus, turning to me and smiling face, he said, "We want your lordship to listen to some of our compositions." And in fact, he read me 2 very long Pindaric poems, one in praise and most highly virgin, and the other one about Countess Madeline. We do not know exactly what Testi thought of these very long poems, since it would have been dangerous for him to state his opinion freely, even in a letter. But we went to write. I, following the mood, commented on each line with the needed praise, and after having kissed His Holiness's foot, for such an unusual sign of benevolence, the reading of poetry, I left. Weeks later, when the Duke himself visited the Pope, he managed to recite entire verses of the Pope's poetry and praised it enough to make the Pope so jubilant he seemed to have lost his mind. Interpretation. In matters of taste, you can never be too obsequious with your master. Taste is one of the ego's prickliest parts. Never impugn or question the master's taste. His poetry is sublime, his dress impeccable, and his manner the model for all. Scene number 7. One afternoon in ancient China, Chao, ruler of Han, from 358 to 333 BC, got drunk, and he fell asleep in the palace gardens. The court crown keeper, whose sole task was to look after the ruler's head apparel, passed through the gardens and saw his master sleeping without a coat. Since it was getting cold, the crown keeper placed his own coat over the ruler and left. When Chao woke and saw the coat upon him, he asked his attendants, "Who put more clothes on my body?" "The crown keeper," they replied. The ruler immediately called for an official coat keeper and had him punished for neglecting his duties. He also called the crown keeper, whom he had beheaded. Oh my God, I wasn't expecting that. Interpretation. Do not overstep your bounds. Do what you are assigned to do to the best of your abilities, and never do more. To think that by doing more, you are doing better is a common blunder. It is never good to be seen to be trying too hard. It is as if you were covering up some deficiency. Fulfilling a task that had not been asked of you just makes people suspicious. If you are a crown keeper, be a crown keeper. Save your excess energy for when you are not in the court. Ooh, I am so thirsty. Guys, I have been reading for 45 minutes straight. And we still have like 3 more pages. Okay. Whew. Scene number 8. Okay. One day for amusement, the Italian Renaissance painter Fra Filippo Lippi, 1406 to 1469, and some friends went sailing in a small boat off Ancona. There they were captured by 2 Moorish galleys, which hauled them off in the chains to Barbary, where they were sold as slaves. For 18 long months, Filippo toiled with no hope of returning to Italy. On several occasions, Filippo saw the man who had bought him pass by, and one day he decided to sketch this man's portrait using burnt coal, charcoal from the fire. Still in his chains, he found a white wall where he drew a full-length likeness of his owner in Moorish clothing. The owner soon heard about this, for no one had seen such a skill in drawing before in these parts. It seemed like a miracle, a gift from God. The drawing so pleased the owner that he instantly gave Filippo his freedom and employed him in his court. All the big men on Barbary coast came to see the magnificent colored portraits that Fra Filippo then proceeded to do. And finally, in gratitude for the honor in this way brought upon him, Filippo's owners returned the artist safely to Italy. Very interesting. I feel like I really didn't learn much about the Moors in history class. Anybody else? Interpretation. We who toil for other people have all in some way been captured by pirates and sold into slavery. But like Fra Filippo, if to a lesser degree, most of us possess some gift, some talent, and ability to do something better than other people. Make your master a gift of your talents, and you will rise above other courtiers. Let him take the credit if necessary. It will only be temporary. Use him as a stepping stone, a way of displaying your talent, and eventually buying your freedom from enslavement. Interesting. Interesting. All right, so scene number 9. Okay, sorry. Alfonso I of Aragon once had a servant who told the king that the night before he had a dream Alfonso had given him a gift of weapons, horses, and clothes. Alfonso, a generous, lordly man, decided it would be amusing to make this dream come true, and promptly gave the servant exactly these gifts. A little while later, the same servant announced to Alfonso that he had yet another dream, and in this one Alfonso had given him a considerable pile of gold florins. The king smiled and said, "Don't believe in the dreams from now on. They lie." That's so funny. Interpretation. In his treatment of the servant's first dream, Alfonso remained in control. By making a dream come true, he claimed a godlike power for himself. If in a mild and humorous way, in the second dream, however, all appearance of magic was gone. This was nothing but an ugly con game on the servant's part. Never ask for too much, then, and know when to stop. It is the master's prerogative to give when he wants and what he wants, and to do so without prompting. Do not give him the chance to reject your requests. Better to win favors by deserving them, so that they are bestowed without your asking. Whew. All right. Scene number, drumroll please, 10. Okay. The great English landscape painter J.M.W. Turner, 1775 to 1851, was known for his use of color, which he applied with a brilliance and a strange iridescence. No, ma'am. Iridescence. The color in his paintings was so striking, in fact, that other artists never wanted his work hung next to theirs. It has inevitably made everything around it seem dull. The painter Sir Thomas Lawrence once had the misfortune of seeing Turner's masterpiece, Cologne, hanging in an exhibition between two works of his own. Lawrence complained bitterly to the gallery owner, who gave him no satisfaction. After all, someone's paintings had to hang next to Turner's. But Turner heard of Lawrence's complaint, and before the exhibition opened, he toned down the brilliant golden sky in Cologne, making it as dull as the colors of Lawrence's work. A friend of Turner's, who saw the painting, approached the artist with a horrified look. "What have you done to your picture?" he said. "Well, poor Lawrence was so unhappy," Turner replied, "and it's only lamp black. It'll wash off after the exhibition." That is so funny. Interpretation. Many of a courtier's anxieties have to do with the master, with whom most dangers lie. Yet it is a mistake to imagine that the master is the only one to determine your fate. Your equals and subordinates play integral parts also. A court is a vast stew of resentments, fears, and powerful envy. You have to placate everyone who might someday harm you, deflecting their resentment and envy and diverting their hostility onto other people. Turner, eminent courtier, knew that his good fortune and fame depended on his fellow painters as well as his dealers and patrons. How many of the great have been felled by envious colleagues? Better temporarily to dull your brilliance than to suffer the slings and arrows of envy. Whew, drum roll please, guys. Scene number 11. Winston Churchill was an amateur artist, and after World War II, his painting became collector items. The American publisher Henry Luce, in fact, creator of the Time Life magazines, kept one of Churchill's landscapes hanging in his private office in New York. On a tour through the United States once, Churchill visited Luce in his office, and the two men looking at the painting together. The publisher remarked, "It's a good picture, and I think it needs something in the foreground, a sheep perhaps." More to Luce's horror, Churchill's secretary called the publisher the next day and asked him to have the painting sent to England. Luce did so. Mortified that he had perhaps offended the former prime minister, a few days later, however, the painting was shipped back, but slightly altered. A single sheep now grazed peacefully in the foreground. Interpretation. In stature and fame, Churchill stood head and shoulders above Luce, but Luce was certainly a man of power, so let us imagine a slight equality between them. Still, what did Churchill have to fear from an American publisher? Why bow to the criticism of a dilettante? 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 I don't know how to say it. Dilettante? 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 I don't know. A court, in this case, the entire world of diplomats and international statesmen, and also of the journalists who court them, is a place of mutual dependence. It is unwise to insult or offend the taste of persons of power, even if they are below or equal to you. If a man like Churchill can swallow the criticism of a man like Luce, he proves himself a courtier without peer. Perhaps his correction of the painting implied a certain condescension as well, but he did it so subtly that Luce did not perceive any slight. Imitate Churchill, put in a sheep, It is always beneficial to play the obliging courtier even when you are not serving the master. Now, the delicate game of courtiership. A warning. Talleyrand was a consummate courtier, especially in serving his master Napoleon. When the two men were first getting to know each other, Napoleon once said in passing, "I shall come to lunch at your house one of these days." Talleyrand had a house in Auteuil, in the suburbs of Paris. "I should be delighted, mon general." My French, guys. Pardon my French. The minister replied, "And since my house is close to the Bois de Boulogne, you will be able to amuse yourself with a bit of shooting in the afternoon." "I do not like shooting," said Napoleon, "but I love hunting. Are there any boars in the Bois de Boulogne?" Napoleon came from Corsica, where boar hunting was a great sport. By asking if there were boars in a Paris park, he showed himself still a provincial, almost a rube. Talleyrand did not laugh, however, but he could not resist a practical joke on a man who was now his master in politics, although not in blood and nobility. Since Talleyrand came from an old aristocratic family, to Napoleon's question, then he simply replied, "Very few, mon general. But I dare you say will manage to find one." It was arranged that Napoleon would arrive at Talleyrand's house the following day at 7 a.m. and would spend the morning there, and the boar hunt would take place in the afternoon. Throughout the morning, the excited general talked nothing but boar hunting. Meanwhile, Talleyrand secretly had his servants go to the market, buy two enormous black pigs, and take them to the great park. After lunch, the hunters and their hounds set off for the Bois de Boulogne, and at the secret signal from Talleyrand, the servants loosened the pigs. "I see a boar!" Napoleon cried joyfully, jumping on his horse to give a chase. Talleyrand stayed behind. It took half an hour of galloping through the park before the boar was finally captured. At the moment of triumph, however, Napoleon was approached by one of his aides, who knew that the creature could not possibly be a boar, and feared that the general would be ridiculed once the story got out. Sir, he told Napoleon, "you realize, of course, that this is not a boar, but a pig." Flying into a rage, Napoleon immediately set off a gallop for Talleyrand's house. He realized along the way that now he would be a butt of many a joke, and that exploding at Talleyrand would only make him more ridiculous, and it would be better to make a show of good humor. Still, he did not hide his displeasure well. Talleyrand decided to try to soothe the general's bruised ego. He told Napoleon not to go back to Paris yet. He should go again hunting in the park. There were many rabbits there, and hunting them had been a favorite pastime of Louis XVI. Talleyrand even offered to let Napoleon use a set of guns that had once belonged to Louis. With much flattery and cajolery, he once said again to got Napoleon agreed to hunt. The party left for the park in the late afternoon. Along the way, Napoleon told Talleyrand, "I am not Louis XVI. I surely won't kill even one rabbit." Yet that afternoon, strangely enough, the park was teeming with rabbits. Napoleon killed at least 50 of them, and his mood changed from anger to satisfaction. And at the end of the wild shooting spree, however, the same aide approached him and whispered in his ear, "To tell the truth, sir, I'm beginning to believe. Oh, to tell the truth, sir." Oh, I'm doing British. How do I got a channel by my French. Au devoir. Au devoir. To tell the truth, sir, I am beginning to believe these rabbits are not wild rabbits. I suspect the rascal Talleyrand has played another joke on us. The aide was right. Talleyrand had in fact sent his servants back to the market, where they had purchased dozens of rabbits, and then they had released them in the Bois de Boulogne. Napoleon immediately mounted his horse, galloped away, this time turning straight to Paris. He later threatened Talleyrand, warned him not to tell a soul what had happened, and if he had become the laughing stock of Paris, there would be hell to pay. It took months for Napoleon to be able to trust Talleyrand again, and he never totally forgave him of his humiliation. Interpretation. Courtiers are like magicians. They deceptively play with appearances, only letting those around them see what they want them to see. With so much deception and manipulation afoot, it is essential to keep people from seeing your tricks and glimpsing your sleight of hand. Talleyrand was normally the grand wizard of courtiership, but for Napoleon's aid, he probably would have gone away completely with both pleasing his master and having a joke at the general's expense. But courtiership is a subtle art, and overlooked traps and inadvertent mistakes can ruin your best tricks. Never risk being caught in your maneuvers. Never let people see your devices. If it happens, you instantly pass in people's perception from a courtier of great manners to a loathsome rogue. It is a delicate game for you to play. Apply the utmost attention to covering your tracks and never let your master unmask you. Guys, I'm not even going to do my thoughts and opinions of this chapter. I did it along the way. My mouth is so tired from talking so much. I just read to you guys for 61 minutes straight. I hope you appreciate it. Please like and let me know that you like this video and that you want me to come back and do another one, because guys, we're only halfway done with the book. So be preparado. Okay, let me see. Preparen para el mejor. Muchas gracias por tu tiempo. Y subscribe if you vibe. And thank you so much for watching. It's been your girl, Annabelle the Angel.